Over the years, we've detailed how opioid addiction can devastate entire families in our series, The United States of Addiction. These families are sometimes desperate for help, but could forcing addicts into prison for treatment be the answer? Take a look. Laws in 37 states allow people suffering from addiction to be involuntarily committed to treatment. Massachusetts Law Section 35 allows family members, physicians, or police officers to get people incarcerated even if they haven't committed crimes. Critics say sections of these prisons are being rebranded as treatment facilities, but don't give people the tools and treatment they actually need. They argue there is higher likelihood of relapse and potential fatal overdoses. Supporters say these programs are helping curb the opioid epidemic by getting people the help they wouldn't get on their own. This leaves the question, are these treatment facilities setting addicts up for failure or saving lives? Retired Circuit Court Judge Mary Shanowski joins us today. Woo! And also joining us is addiction specialist and host of Dr. Drew Midday Live, Dr. Drew Pensky. Welcome to both of you.
Hey.
And I want to start with you, Mary. Your thoughts, this concept of really forcing someone who's addicted to drugs into prison for treatment.
Well, I'm not for the concept of prison, but I am for the commitment process to have them committed, but not to prison. They're not criminals, they have an illness, and we need to treat the illness. However, what's the difference really between a commitment for a mentally ill person who suffers, let's say, from manic depression, and they stop taking their medication? We go to the probate court and we say there are risks to themselves, we need to do something, they're gonna harm themselves or others, and we force them, if they meet the criteria of the statute, we force them into a mental institution for treatment.
But for mental health issues, there are institutions, but unfortunately,
and that's my gripe with the statute.
And they're not there, you know, from a legal point of view. I would guess, and I know you're biting at the bullet. You're like a racehorse ready to go.
I can feel the energy.
My only point that I want to make, I would think that it's almost unconstitutional that it's putting somebody in prison for an addiction problem.
No, they have a hearing process. There's an entire process in place to make sure that they're a threat to themselves or a harm to others. And that's our concern. They are a threat to themselves and a harm to others.
We've got to frame this conversation. Addiction is a fatal disease. It's not different than somebody saying, I'm going to kill myself, than I'm going to keep drinking until I die. Same phenomena. Addiction is fatal. Opioid addiction, the prognosis in opioid addiction is worse than the vast majority of cancer, and we don't deal with it accordingly. Fatal illness. If you get in the way of treating people with a fatal illness, you are committing a crime, in my humble opinion. I talked about it last time here. I called it homicide. I'm beginning to develop that rhetoric. So this is a fatal disease. It needs to be dealt with accordingly. The brain is not working right. If it was demented patients driving off a cliff, you'd be outraged if you didn't intervene on behalf of those patients.
Okay, but I want to ask you, because some would say you're criminalizing drug addiction.
Forget criminalization.
But
stop thinking of it that way.
Right, okay, but that's the discussion.
You're saying it's more a mental illness.
Of course it's a mental illness, but there's two things. So one is a fatal illness that if you are getting in the way of treatment of, I have issues with the ethics of that, number one. But number two, there's a different problem. And that is that the medical literature is pretty clear that when you look at routine treatment of a forced patient to treatment, the outcomes are not good.
Right.
So, and Judy's going to hang her hat on that data. But I will tell you, as somebody who's run a program for 25 years, if you have a good program and you keep people in long enough, it's astonishing what you can do.